Make sure you subscribe to both our YouTube channel and our RSS feed for all future conversations here at You Think.
If you don't know this man, you've never touched a basketball before, but I am honored to be joined by my friend Steve Nash, Hall of Famer, NBA All-Star, multiple NBA All-Star. This man is a hoops god. But today we're talking a little bit about a different sport. We're talking some soccer. I know Steve through the game of soccer, met him playing pickup out in LA. And if you do not know, if you've never read an interview, this man is a real live hooper when it comes to soccer. Steve, first off, talk to me a little bit about the joy that you feel when you touch a soccer ball when you're playing.
Well, I mean, for real, there's a joy with the game. As my first word was goal. I grew up in a British household, played the game, like as much as a connection with my dad as anything else growing up. And so I really grew up in a soccer household, loved it, played it. And it's funny you asked that because, like, I was just saying, I just joined. We moved to Phoenix almost a year and a half ago. I finally found a game here, joined a team, playing in a little league. And, like, it just, one game just added so much to my life. Just being back out there, feeling that, just everything you get from the game, the connectivity with teammates, the touch, the feel, the rhythm, the passing, that it was like profound for me to be like, I'm 50 years old and I got so much joy out of playing in this little eight-a-side league. And it's the same like in the backyard with my son, just like, you know, passing back and forth, making a good touch, making a clean pass. Like, it still means as much, if not more, to me now than, when I was a young kid. So that connection to the ball, never really goes away. It's a special feeling, and it's been really kind of illuminated for me here recently.
You talk about that connection you now have it with your son, but I got to see you in your natural environment. Your dad came out to play a couple times. You guys still share that ability to connect through the game of soccer, through football. How did that come about? Talk to me about how that grew between the two of you.
Yeah, my dad. So my dad grew up in London. Grew up in Tottenham. You and I don't really like to talk about the division there between red and blue and white. But
We won't talk about that too much. It was an amicable podcast.
yeah, okay. Um, and so I just grew up a massive fan of the game because my dad had such a passion for it. So whether it was just playing in the backyard, or waking up at 5 o'clock on the west coast of Canada to watch Spurs play on a Saturday, it's like it's just who I am. It's a part of my person and history, and I guess it's a part of our family and the culture that we live in as a family. So my brother played for Canada 35 times. My sister played in college. Like just that kind of passion my dad was able to give to us around the game, but all sports. But his sport was soccer. He played professionally in South Africa. I played in the conference in England. So he played at a good level, but also but more importantly, it was really about like his passion for the game. Like he just loved the sport. Um, and that just, I don't know, like it's funny having kids yourself because I think this is by osmosis, but my big thing with my son is he's falling in love with it, and that's all I want. I just want him to love the game,
Yeah,
and so it's not about like, hey, you got to get better. It's like you got to fall deeper in love,
right.
So that's the way I try to approach it with him, and I think that's because that's what my dad did with us in the backyard.
Yeah,
Whether
yeah.
he coached our teams and all that stuff, but really what I remember more than the pracs is the informal stuff with your dad in the backyard, waiting on the steps for him to come home to work with your ball, and can we go play in the backyard? Like I mean that's a core memory, like you know, and it stays with you that feeling, and then when you get old enough to kind of like think about it and articulate it, it's like yeah, like that's a deep rooted connection through sport, and in this case soccer, that like is like one of the greatest gifts a parent can give you. Is like the game is, well, even though I went on to play basketball, like the game is still so important and so kind of central to me as a human being. It's special, and so not that it's always got to be about sports, but whenever there's that connection between a parent and a child around something that they can grow that passion with, it's a really, I think, a strong and an everlasting kind of bond. And so fortunate for my dad that he was able to give that to me and my brother and my sister as well.
I love that. I love that. You mentioned that passion. 70% of youth athletes will drop out of organized sports by the time they're
Mhm.
13 years old. But you
Mhm.
maintained, you played at a very high level through to college. How did you maintain the passion? How did your father help you maintain passion in multiple sports, not just
Mhm.
in soccer and basketball? You also played rugby, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a different time. I'm 50 now, so we're talking like middle school and high school in the late 80s, early 90s. Graduated high school in 92. So I grew up playing soccer was the number one sport, but I grew up in Canada, so I played hockey. And so
Mhm.
what we did there at the time, before the youth sports landscape kind of became this early commitment to one sport, you played hockey and soccer in the winter, and you played baseball and box lacrosse in the summer. And so, and then I'd play all the school sports. So if it was volleyball season, I'm on the volleyball team. If it was soccer or basketball, I'd do that as well. I went to a new school in 11th grade, and they had a great basketball coach who also was a rugby coach. Played basketball on a national championship collegiate team in Canada, and was like didn't play much, but was on the national rugby team. And so
Yeah, yeah,
his thought was, you come to the school, you commit to every sport. So I'd play soccer, basketball, and rugby. Because rugby was an important part of that school. And so I didn't have, it wasn't like, hey, don't get hurt, you're a basketball recruit. It was, no, this is going to make you better, tougher, better athlete. So you're going to play and commit. And that was kind of just at the time, we were much more into, I think we've outthought ourselves a little bit, and now everything's a race. Now youth sports is about entrepreneurship and opportunity, and so we sell parents a dream, and the parent feels like and in their defense, they feel like, I don't want to take this away from little Sarah or Johnny, and they commit to this one sport, and then the kid gets swept up in this current of the club and the parent trying to provide what's best because they know better than the
yeah,
kid.
yeah.
Whereas I think the kid, doesn't really get to participate in that unless they develop a deep passion. But unfortunately, when we pick a sport so young, we don't know what the kid's going to like in 6 months, 18 months, 24 months, and the chances of them really liking it and growing a deep passion are also at risk when they feel that they're on this journey of others. They feel like, my parents really want this.
Yeah.
Kids are innate. They innately understand that and feel that. They feel the nerves, the energy, the wins, the losses, rather than I feel it with my son, my 7-year-old, started a little late. This is hilarious to say, started a little late, played soccer at 6. And now he's gotten a lot better. He really loves it. But I started to realize 6 months ago when he got in the car, he'd say, "Did I do good?"
Hmm.
And I was like, that I don't like that. He still says it to this day, but from the time I started realizing he's asking this every day, my answer changed to, "Did you work hard? Did you have fun? Then you did great." You know, because I think what happens is you get in the car and like, well, you could have done this, you could have done that.
Right.
They're not dumb. They have emotions, they have feelings, they understand. Like, even if they can't articulate it, this is important. My parent, I feel pressure here. Wow, I got to get better at X, Y, and Z. Like, you're 6, 7 years old. Like, you should be having a blast flying around with your teammates, like, not a care in the world. So I know I'm going on Maisie here, but like that's the part that I worry about with with our society now is it's a race, it's an arms race, or how good can my kid get, how
Yeah.
fast, and that I think is very perilous for the emotional health, but also like sport for life. That puts all of it, I think, in at risk.
I got kind of a two-parter for you.
Mm,
If Steve Nash is a 13-year-old in 2024, do you think that your specialization journey would have gone different?
mm,
Would you have still played soccer and
yeah.
basketball and other sports in this day and age? And are you going to, how do you navigate that with your kids? You mentioned it
Mhm.
a little bit, but do you think it would have changed for you?
It would have been a lot harder to do it the way I did it, and frankly, it's interesting. I didn't play basketball till I was 13, really.
Mm.
Like, played a tiny, tiny bit. And then I went to a school at the 8th grade where all the kind of jocks playing on the playground were like a group of 5 kids that were playing basketball.
Right.
And so I was still playing on the club soccer team, the club hockey team, but I was having a blast. Michael Jordan just came on the scene. The Air Jordans came on the scene. Commercials with Spike Lee. These kids were all playing basketball already on the playground. So we became fast friends, started playing every day, and fell in love with the game. But that's how it should be, right? Now, I also it's also proof that you don't need to have the best handle and shot when you're 8, 9, 10. Like I learned physical literacy. I learned,
Right.
you know, angles, anticipation, deception, things like that. Um, and so back to your question, I don't know if it would have been as straightforward, just because of the way it is. Like maybe I would have just stuck to soccer because I love soccer. My dad was a soccer player. Having said that, like I don't think I'd become an NBA player if I didn't have the breadth of physical experiences in sports and decision making and pathways and creativity that playing everything afforded me. That was the separator because I wasn't tall, I wasn't the fastest, I wasn't the strongest, I didn't jump the highest. For me, it was about skill, creativity, deception, and that really, I think, I had a unique way of acquiring that through other sports. Frankly, that was my baseline, not just playing tons of hoops. So it would have been a bigger challenge. As far as my son, who's 7, I wanted him to play as many sports as possible, as long as possible. I think it's also helpful for burnout.
Yeah.
Kids playing different sports, then they get back to soccer and they're like buzzing to play again rather than it's 10 days in a row of soccer. It's like, well, I've played tennis, I've played basketball, I've played football with the kids at school, whatever it may be. I think that's like another part of this that we underestimate. Yeah, I think it would have been a challenge, but I'm going to try to break that challenge with my son. And even if he falls super hard for one of the sports, I want to continue to have him mix it up and play other things.
Love that. Now you kind of mentioned how you were never the biggest, the strongest, the fastest. You are hailed as one of the examples of someone who doesn't have to be incredibly physically gifted, but it's the intangibles. What to you are the most, if you want to give me three, the three most important intangibles to you for someone who wants to make it?
Mm. Well, there's a lot of different intangibles, and they can all, there's a lot of ways to bake the cake, so to speak, right? So for me, I also was lucky because I had a dad who really, his values around sport were about thinking, creativity, being, cunning or witty or deceptive. And so, like, if I scored 3 goals in a soccer game, like, we get in the car, he's not going to be like, 3 goals, amazing. He's going to be like, you remember that time when you beat one man, you drew another man, you could have shot, but you passed to a teammate who had an open goal and scored? Amazing. So now my value system isn't around like how many goals can I score, which you're competing with the entire world. I was in a unique value system and challenge of like how creative can I be, how clever can I be, how deceptive. And so I think that's a part of it, is that I felt that from my dad, is like his joy in a great pass, his joy in someone making an intelligent decision. And so I think, so for example, so for me, you know, like the things like, okay, I wasn't going to win a decathlon, but I had great balance, great coordination, developed great hands, feet, all these things because I played a ton of sports, right? So it was easy. There is some science, I believe, around ability to acquire skill when you come from a varied background, rather than if you've just been doing the same things your whole life. Like you're not going to acquire new skills as quickly. So that was a very blunt way of kind of explaining what I've read around some of the sciences. But I think for me, I was the opposite. I was playing everything. I was playing in the street, play street hockey, playing touch football, playing, whatever was going, I was in. And
Mm.
so I think that gave me a unique kind of ability where I couldn't out muscle, out jump, some of the things like you're gonna measure in a combine. But as far as like decision making, anticipation, coordination, creativity, that all developed because I played all sorts of different sports and brought other ideas from one sport to the other and was able to translate, like the way you hit a ball and the way you spin you create is similar with a tennis racket or a soccer ball or whatever it may be, or even a hockey puck. There's going to be, ways to kind of caress, the puck, the ball that you can transfer from other sports. So that I'm a big believer, obviously, in playing lots of sports, having lots of physical and mental kind of decision making. Um, experiences and possibilities, and I think that that really affords kids, especially kids like me that aren't, it's so explosive. If they can learn to dribble, they got a chance.
Yeah, yeah.
No. I had to be able to win in the margins, win in other ways, and I think that was born from playing tons of sports. I mean, it has to be, or else you shouldn't be able to just play basketball at 13 and have that type of success. So that all the other sports had a huge role in my ability to play basketball.
What's up, guys? Do you want custom fanwear like this cricket shirt for Charlotte Christian School?
We've got premium apparel from your favorite brands.
The best part about it is I don't have to just wear it to Charlotte Christian's events. I can wear it to golf. I can wear it to lunch. It's turned into my uniform. Go right now over to youth.inc, sign up for our newsletter. It talks about our podcast for that week, our interview guests, all the breaking news across the landscape of youth sports, and you can win one piece of merch for your school by going to sign up today.
And remember, it's not .com, it's youth.inc. Now, back to our episode.
Well, one of the coolest things for me is when I first started playing pickup with you, I came home and I hit the homies up. I was like, he plays soccer exactly like he plays basketball. Is that a conscious thing, or is it just kind of how you were raised?
So it is how I was raised, the way my dad valued the game. He always said the ball's faster than you are. Your brain is faster than your feet. Use the ball. Think of the angles. Think of drawing people to get sucking them in so they get too close. Those type of values. That's a big part of it. But the truth is, I played basketball like I play soccer because I played soccer until I was 13. I didn't play
Oh,
basketball, and
that.
so like I think that would what my people would say who grew up with me. And so it's funny, I went on to play basketball in the public arena, but that was really it was soccer that influenced my basketball more than the other way around.
Yeah, I think we're starting to see the similarities. There's so much overlap in not just the sport itself, sport culture around the world in basketball and soccer. You see Pep Guardiola sitting on sidelines. What about growing up playing soccer helped your mental capacity when you were playing basketball? What
Mm,
really translated the most for
mm.
you?
Well, I think in soccer it's a game where you have to, especially the higher the level, the more attention you draw. Like if you're getting man marked at 7, 8, 9 years old, you have to know what you're going to do with the ball or have an idea before you get it. So the anticipation, the vision, seeing the angles, seeing the opportunities, what's option one, two, and three, before the ball comes to you. I think that really helps you, right? As in any sport, right? You're already aware, thinking, scanning, analyzing, and it becomes a habit. Like you're trying to think ahead because you don't want to get caught on the ball. Now having to decide, someone's, marking you tight. It's too late. So I think that's one component. And then, for me, like trying to find angles, whether you're bending, sliding, chipping, driving a ball, now as a point guard, I could use my hands. I felt like cheating almost like, wait, I can spin it. I can easily throw this over there, put this down there. So I definitely, it had a huge influence on me. And, whatever it is, however you want to break it down, like soccer had a massive impact, I think, on my ability to reach the level I reached in basketball.
You mentioned about how your father helped you frame things mentally and how it wasn't just about goals, it's about what did you
Mm,
create, like how did you facilitate. Can you think of any other instances growing up where a coach really kind of helped you frame the game and it really clicked
mm,
for you?
mm. That's a good question. I mean, I had some great coaches growing up. I mean, my some basketball coaches were just like, I think, perfect for me at that stage of my for different reasons. Like, you know, understand learning the fundamentals. Was one set of coaches. Discipline and details. From another coach. So I'm not sure that anyone framed it in the way my dad did, but they framed it in other ways that were positive. I think my high school coach was fantastic and was very much pushing me to be extremely efficient. Discipline, great footwork, but in that to be super aggressive. So but instead of doing it through volume and just carefree. He was like he wanted me to get really, really efficient with my footwork in order to be more aggressive. Not like, hey, like cut out all this. It was like, no, do more, but do it better, do it more efficiently. Like Think about your feet, your balance, your opportunities, your angles. Where's your space, your time? Find it here, and then attack it with the great footwork. So those details were really important, especially as a smaller guard. By NBA standards, you have to be really super efficient in order to survive.
Uh, let's talk a little bit about you. You mentioned some of the fantastic coaching you've had, different types of coaching, different types of leadership. What would you pick out as some of the key attributes that they all shared that made them
Mm,
great coaches?
mm. Yeah, for me, I think like the technical stuff is important, right? But nothing like a coach that has a passion for the game and wants to see you do well. Sometimes that's through School of Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's about building mental toughness. But when you feel the coach's motive is pure, they're trying to make you better. Even if, like, my college coach was tough, my high school coach was tough too, but maybe not as tough as my college coach. Tough, high expectations, demanding, but you knew it was for the right reasons. You knew that that one, they're making you a better player, and two, that if you can ride out the challenge, the standard they're setting for you every day, not only going to be a better player, you're going to be mentally stronger, and you're going to be able to face more adversity and overcome. So, that's a really, really huge component when you're talking about building resilient athletes and people, right? So for a professional athlete, you have to develop a ton of resilience. You have to develop the ability to build and have the I always say the passion to creates the discipline, which creates the habits. And so if you have great habits, day after day, you're doing the right things in the right way with the right approach and the right mentality, you're going to improve. And that has to fight off boredom, overuse, staleness, injury, losses, somebody in front of you, playing time, whatever it may be. There's always opportunity to grow your resilience. And I think we need to do a better job as coaches, programs, parents, in that letting our kids build that resilience. This generation of parents, I think we want to protect our kids so much that
Yeah.
we don't give them the opportunity to grow those scars. Now, we don't want them out there in any inappropriate, positions, but having them fail and bounce back is such a huge part of them. One, if they're going to become an athlete professionally, they have to have that resilience. But
Yeah.
two, that resilience, what that affords them as human beings, employees, parents, partners, like, that is so valuable to them for the rest of their life, right?
Mhm.
So it's one of the key ingredients in your success as an athlete, but also one of the key takeaways from a youth sports experience is to grow some resilience and be able to build some scars to say, I can handle this loss, I can handle this criticism, I can handle this fatigue, whatever it may be, and I can persevere. So that was a huge part of what I learned from my high school and college coaches, was the mental toughness, resilience, however you want to frame it, that allows you to keep going. Because if you can't keep going day after day after day after day, if you get bored, if you get tired, if you let your level drop for too long, it's gone, right? So
Yeah.
the opportunity goes. So I'm really, really grateful for that. Is that they've given me a model how to build habits, healthy habits, and how to rely on your resilience to keep going in order to build those habits, stick to those habits, refine those habits so that you are always in a growth mindset, always getting better, rather than living by the result. I lost again. My level drops, my head drops. No, I
Yeah.
lost. Here's an opportunity to reinforce my habits, to get back to my process, and to build my resilience. And so that's, I think, the approach that we should take as parents, programs, coaches, in educating our kids around sports and life, is that the model of building a healthy habit and bringing the resilience along with it to continue and to refine that habit.